Hello, everybody, and welcome to our post-daily news update for Monday, November the 8th. I am John Pollock alongside Wai Ting. And Wai, are you ready for week 2 of daily news updates?
I am. Last week I thought went relatively well, but let's see how week 2 goes. That's really the true test, I would say.
All right, no wasting any of your time. We're going to get right into things. Momentarily, we'll discuss our thoughts on the key matches at Power Struggle, but off the top, this past Saturday, we learned of the passing of Angelo Mosca at the age of 84, somebody that many are going to associate with his lengthy professional wrestling career, but especially in Canada, I would say most known for his career in football in the Canadian Football League. He was somebody that played for many, many seasons with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He played with the Ottawa Rough Riders and with the Montreal Alouettes, going to the Grey Cup many, many different times. And it was as he was involved in football in his early days that he started to moonlight in professional wrestling. It was Eddie Quinn who seemed to be the one to kind of give him the push to look at doing pro wrestling. He would go to Stampede Wrestling and then kind of completely focus on professional wrestling after his football career was done. But just in this country, he was one of the major names in CFL history. If you are from that generation when the CFL was an enormous force here in Canada, I mean, still prominent, but if you go back to the glory days of the CFL, I mean, Angelo Mosca was a very prominent figure. And the story that has been retold so much over the past 2 days, was a famous game in the Grey Cup game in 1963 between Hamilton and the BC Lions, when there was a hit to a player on the Lions, Willie Fleming, by Mosca, that was deemed a very dirty hit. And it led to the quarterback of the Lions, Joe Cap, refusing to shake hands with Mosca after the game. And this was relitigated 48 years later, the week of the Grey Cup, a decade ago, when the two were brought on stage for a CFL event during that week. And it was supposed to be kind of, here is a 74 and 73-year-old former football players that were going to make amends over this controversy from 48 years ago. And it escalated into Mosca swinging his cane at Cap starting to throw punches at him, and this clip went everywhere. These two landed on Dr. Phil after. It was a clip that was just aired so often that week after, just because, number one, I mean, it's completely ridiculous when you watch this clip. It also is a little unsettling when you would learn several years later of Angelo Mosca's Alzheimer's diagnosis as well, that I think you have to also take that into account. But I mean, for the last 10 years, that clip is going to be what many people are going to reminisce regarding Angelo Mosca and just the sheer ridiculousness of these two men engaging in a fight in their mid-70s on a stage.
Yeah, I recall that. I mean, maybe it's the pro wrestler in him, that was thinking, hey, money to be made here. Why extinguish a feud?
Well, his pro wrestling career, on the other hand, he had all of this fame from the CFL, so obviously that made him, a name in Canada, and he would be a prominent one, especially in Hamilton and Toronto. But he was somebody that traveled all over to many, many major territories in the U.S. He went to Mid-Atlantic. He went to San Francisco during the Stevens and Patterson era. He ventured to Florida. But it was here in Toronto when he was hooked up with Mid-Atlantic, and this is when Mid-Atlantic had the partnership with the Tunnies, and they would come up on Sundays, and that would last until 1984 when the WWF took over Toronto in July of that year, and then Mosca would work for the World Wrestling Federation, mainly for their Canadian loop, but also tried out as an announcer for a while, did not really take to that very effectively, and then tried to branch out on his own with Milt of Ruskin, and they tried to get Pro Wrestling Canada off the ground, and they had one big success, which was running an event called Mosca Mania at Cops Coliseum in 1986 and drew something like 12,000 people. But the follow-up event did a fraction of that, and it didn't really last much longer. And that's when his wrestling career and kind of time in the spotlight kind of came to a close. But in terms of his legacy in the CFL, I mean, this was someone that was named to the Hamilton Sports Hall of Fame, to the CFL Hall of Fame. His jersey was retired in 2015. And when TSN did a list of the top 50 players in the history of the CFL, I think he was like 37th on the list. So he's one of those names, Wade, that my dad probably knows the name of 2 professional wrestlers, and it would be Whipper Billy Watson and Angelo Mosca. So those would be the 2.
That's it tells you, I guess, how important of a figure he was to people of this country at a previous generation. I don't know if I can really name any CFL players. So, wow.
Doug Flutie.
Yes.
Doug Flutie. The last thing is that Mosca was also part of that class action lawsuit against the WWE over the concussion-related issues. And I think his case, I mean, it kind of outlines the trouble in trying to pin down concussion issues to one company. Like, he, to me, is the perfect example of somebody that he had a career of football from his teenage years onward. And I just listed off like some of the territories he worked at. I mean, it's impossible to be able to narrow down cognitive issues that you sustained in one specific run or set of years. It becomes very difficult because for most of these people, they're not going to show the effects until years down the road. And he's just one where it's impossible just to pin it down to a several year period with one company. And it made that case very difficult to prove if the WWF was completely on the hook here for these individuals. Some you can look at their entire careers at one company, but Mosca was one that just outlines that generation of performer that worked in so many different places. So 84 years old he was when his wife announced over the weekend that he had passed away. He had been in a long-term care facility for several years, again, disclosing that he had Alzheimer's disease back in 2015. Let's move on, though, to Power Struggle Way, and this was a pretty major event for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and also kind of setting the table for not just the upcoming series of tournaments to close the year, but also the January 4th main event with Shingo Takagi and Kazuchika Okada.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, with, the G1 happening in the fall, I mean, it kind of reduces the amount of big world title defenses that you may get before Wrestle Kingdom. And coming out of the show, we already have our main event set, at least for the first night.
Yeah, the main event saw Shingo Takagi retain the championship over Zack Sabre Jr. They went 30 minutes and 29 seconds. And I thought an incredible follow-up to their G1 match. It was just a tremendous match. It was, Shingo Takagi trying to work Zack's style for the early portion, and then it just kind of built into the big striking offense of Shingo Takagi. At the end, it was kind of this one final flurry from Zack, who had taken a Last of the Dragon several minutes earlier, but Takagi was not able to capitalize and go for the cover, and then finally catching Zack with Last of the Dragon just after the 30-minute mark to get the win. But what were some of your thoughts on this in terms of the bar that had been set in the G1, where this was, among people's top matches of the tournament?
It was actually my top match of the G1. So my anticipation coming into this was very high. I really enjoyed it. It was incredibly captivating, I think, to start. Some incredibly smooth looking, very exciting grappling sequences. And then they just got into these like razor thin dodges and counters, and they were both moving so fast. And again, to me, like, this absolutely caps off what was really an incredible G1 from Zack Sabre Jr. And maybe one of the best years of his New Japan run. And he's just at a level now where he's able to not just work technically, but also to do it very aggressively and very fast as well. So, and beyond like technique, I thought this match was quite big on personality. Zack, that kind of, dickish antagonism really comes across, and Shingo was really right there with him, speaking a bit of English, doing a bit of trash talking there. I thought, this one maybe just kind of failed to reach for me the excitement of the first one. And for me, I think a part of that is because the first one, I was not expecting Zach to win. And for him to actually take that one kind of probably colors that one a bit more for me in memory. But it was obviously, the right choice in booking. And I thought it was a great match for sure.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the big moment was this audience totally biting on that Zack Driver near fall. I thought they did a really great job. And it's sort of where I look at Power Struggle at times, where it's most years, you kind of know where the major programs are headed. And this is a show that it becomes very difficult to kind of get suspend that disbelief when you pretty much can see the roadway towards Wrestle Kingdom. And in these top two matches, I thought that was the case, but I thought both delivered in different ways. The second one being Kazuchika Okada and Tama Tonga. I really enjoyed this match quite a lot. I thought this was maybe Tama Tonga's best singles outing that we have seen. Tama Tonga used the Supreme Flow. Late in the match, there were these great counters as he was continually going for the gun stun. He hit him with the Bloody Sunday, and Okada stopped him with a drop kick. Both are down, and it's Tonga hitting his tombstone after reversing Okada's attempt, and Tonga hitting the big drop kick. He went for Veleno, and it was turned into a tombstone, followed by the Rainmaker in 25 minutes and 13 seconds.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I've been a fan of Tama Tonga's throughout the G1. And again, this one, just like Zach, seemed to really kind of cement that run for him and that style. I'm definitely enjoying his new babyface-friendly offense. And I would love to see him in Tangaloa continue those identities through the tag league, which I'm assuming they're both a part of. And this was a big test for Tama Tonga, biggest match of his career, and I thought he absolutely proved that he could more than hang in this role as a dance partner for Okada in a 25-minute semi-main.
In a match where I'm sure many going in knew what the outcome would be, that you have to work against that. I thought they did a terrific job. I enjoyed this match. It exceeded expectations for me. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kenta for the United States Championship. Kenta winning the U.S. title, but within hours of one another, we got two renditions of the violin being played from Eddie Kingston to Kenta in this match.
The violin being played? Okay, what do you mean?
Kenta was like playing a violin to mock Tanahashi, this coming after Eddie Kingston playing the world's smallest violin for CM Punk.
Oh, right, of course, yes.
So this match, this is my recap of the match. We saw Hiroshi Tanahashi hit a high fly flow through a table to the floor.
Yeah.
This was insane. So Tanahashi, I mean, it essentially was Tanahashi working around the table and all of Kenta's antics here. He got rid of the turnbuckle to expose the buckle, and this would be the setup for the ending where Tanahashi targeted the knee to set up for the cloverleaf. He gets sent into the buckle, and as Kenta goes for a GTS, it's turned in midair into a sling blade. He goes for another one, but it's countered, and he gets run into the buckle, rebounds out, and hit with the GTS, and Kenta wins in 23 minutes and 45 seconds.
I really enjoyed this one. I mean, the semi-main and the main were definitely on the lengthier side, and I thought this one was a bit more well-contained at 23 minutes, and I thought a very good pace throughout. Never got boring for me. Very strong babyface and heel chemistry between the two. Great-looking counters, and that big spot with the high-fly flow through a table from Tanahashi. To me, this felt like a G1 main event quality match, worthy of a significant title change here.
And then another title change was El Desperado winning the junior heavyweight title from Robbie Eagles. These two just have a phenomenal chemistry with each other. And the story of this match was each trying to take out the other one's knee. And of course, this lends itself to El Desperado's numero dos that he was trying several times. Eagles would evade the Pinche Loco with a Asai DDT. And as we're kind of deep into the match, there's a spot where Desperado is laid out and Eagles goes for a 450 onto the injured knee of Desperado. But Desperado gets both knees up. So therefore, his knee is hurt, but his better knee hurts Eagles. I thought this was a really like clever spot. And then we go into the sequence of roll-ups, cradles, near falls with Desperado applying numero dos, but with the added twist of taking control of Eagle's wrists so he can't fight to the rope, and he is forced to submit in 18 minutes and 19 seconds. I sound like a broken record, but man, I thought that these 4 matches were fantastic. And this was no different. And I think Robbie Eagles has been... he has quietly had a really great year in this junior heavyweight division, and I hope that he has a great tournament coming up and that there's a focus on this tournament, because it's one where it could get lost in the shuffle at the end of the year.
For him, you mean? Or you mean the tournament itself? Just
the tournament as a whole with both of them. I mean, this is the tour for New Japan that I think gets the least amount of focus of big tournaments that they run.
Both this and the tag league, unfortunately. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Eagles has been really good as champion. He's been working his ass off in any of these big matches. I don't know if it's a reign that's attracted much attention. He has been sort of champion at a time when there's probably the least amount of interest. And a title change like this feels like it's, just getting Desperado to keep that title warm again for Hiromu. As we hit the Wrestling Kingdom, it feels like a lot of these belts are moving into position to kind of like set up those matches. And I hope Robbie Eagles continues to have this prominent position up as a sort of a main eventer, in the junior heavyweight division, and he doesn't just get, lost in the shuffle again.
And before we go to the other matches, they have listed the lineup for the best of the Super Juniors. So the Super Juniors starts Saturday, the World Tag League starts Sunday, and your Super Juniors lineup is Ryusuke Taguchi, Master Wato, Robbie Eagles, Yo, Hiromu, Bushi, El Desperado, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Doki, Taiji Ishimori, El Phantasmo back in Japan, and Sho. So kind of the lineup you would expect for your best of the Super Juniors. It's going to be great wrestling, but I think what's very apparent in this modern era is that you want to promote special. And to me, great wrestling is no longer special. It's the norm. It's expected. So I think that to really grab that outside attention, that extra amount of focus on whatever it is, your big show, your tour, your tournament, there needs to be special stuff attached to it. And maybe, Hiromu being back here with a lot of interesting matchups, Robbie Eagles having a great year, people will see that. But it's going to be a great wrestling tournament. The question is that enough for people when everywhere you're getting great wrestling?
I don't think it's not for me. And the G1 and really New Japan this entire year has felt very stale for that same reason. Their refusal to mix up their roster with either other talent or just even amongst themselves, mixing some of the junior heavyweights up into the heavyweight. And, I guess they can't do vice versa. But I mean, it's going to be great wrestling, but nothing new that I probably haven't seen before. Some wrinkles in here, I suppose. You have a continuation of the Show and Yo storyline that I'm sure we'll be talking about a little bit later as well. I guess Hiromu Takahashi, gunning for the title again, but even that story, I just don't know how much interest there is. Like, it's just we're just chasing that status quo again, aren't we?
How did the amateur wrestling rules match come off way between Toru Yano and Great-O-Khan?
I really enjoyed it. It was a surprisingly straightforward, serious amateur rules match. They had Yuji Nagata come out with a couple of young lions explaining the rules of amateur wrestling, which I thought, was well done. But then the match was just a very straight up match that I thought looked very real. I have no doubt, much of it maybe was very much improvised to be real, but then it just kind of relied on this like one final move from Great-O-Khan or Toru Yano to get the advantage. So talking about what I was just talking about with New Japan, I appreciate any variety on this show that can otherwise feel the same. Yeah, these matches are great, but I just saw like 2 months worth of these great matches. And so there's very little reason to compel me to go and watch this entire show. And in fact, I was looking forward to seeing what something like this looked like. And it just sort of, to me, like showed me that a great side of both Toru Yano and Great-O-Khan that I don't think we have seen all that much of. And, you know, it's the style of match that I think fits well within New Japan Pro Wrestling, especially in the front of a silent crowd. This type of technical wrestling is able to work in front of a non-crowd and lends more credence to the idea of Shibata potentially being able to come back for something like this.
Given the Twitter poll that was like one-sided towards this stipulation opposed to the Kiss My Feet stip that was proposed by Great Khan, do you read that as the audience wanting a more serious division, or simply this was the babyface's request for the match to be the amateur rules match?
You know, it really could be either. Hard for me to say, but I personally, I have no interest in seeing Kiss My Foot or Bend the Knee or type of thing. Like, I think New Japan, for me, should be more heading towards the real rather than the sports entertainment.
And then Evil, Yujiro, and Sho, the House of Torture, became the new never six-man tag champions, defeating Tomohiro Ishii, Hiroki Goto, and Yoshihashi in 13 minutes and 46 seconds, ending the year-plus reign of the Chaos members as six-man tag team champions.
Yeah. I mean, good multi-man sequences. I think what you would expect out of a trios match here, and then screwy finish. So what you would expect out of an Evil match as well. It continues to be quite remarkable to me how quiet these endings are to these Evil cheating finishes. And it's almost as if it's by design here, you know? Unlike most wrestling finishes, like, there is no attempt made to drive up intensity towards that final move. It's like, we do all our moves, they might have a big ending sequence, but then it's just like, here's the cheating, and then slowly, Evil will hit everything is evil, 1, 2, 3, and this crowd is just dead silent. So I mean, it's an interesting way to continue to heat up this Evil character, I suppose.
And the rest of the card was Sonata, Hiromu Takahashi, and Bushi, defeating Ryusuke Taguchi, Yuji Nagata, and Master Wato. Tangaloa, Gedo, and Jado over Togi Makabe, Tomoaki Honma, and Tiger Mask. And the opener was Yoshinobu Kanemaru and Doki over Ryohei Oiwa and Kosei Fujita in 4.5 minutes. Attendance was 2,367 at the Edion Arena, which, given their setup, that was a sellout for them. So a strong sign for New Japan, at least, that they could fill the Edion Arena at their COVID limit for the show. So
this is a crowd that wasn't making any audible noise. Did any of those rules come into effect? The 50% deal?
The rules apply to, it's something like 23 of the prefectures, with Tokyo being the main one. I don't know if those rules actually apply to Osaka or not. I would assume they do, but I don't know for a fact.
Okay, well, interesting. Yeah, but, you know, as far as the crowd goes, this didn't feel all that different, I would say, from your other matches. And some matches being announced after this. Right, John?
That's right. That's right. We have, well, are you alluding to the Super Juniors or which ones?
I mean, a bit of everything, but namely what's going on with Okada.
Right. So Okada is coming to San Jose this weekend for that Battle in the Valley show, which looks excellent on paper. So unfortunately, they had booked this night back when Full Gear was going to have been originally this past Saturday, and then got moved because of the Canelo fight and the UFC card at Madison Square Garden. So instead, we're going to get Full Gear at 8 p.m. and Battle in the Valley will start at 11. So there is going to be a crossover there. And again, it's the New Japan US strategy of you can watch Japanese commentary on New Japan World or pay for English commentary on Fight TV. But Okada's match will be against Buddy Matthews, the former Buddy Murphy in WWE, which is going to be in a prominent position on the show, and a huge match for Buddy Matthews to establish himself post WWE. You could not ask for, I think, a better position, and it should be an incredible crowd in San Jose on top of it.
They are taking the semi-main slot, at least according to this rundown here. And is this has Matthews had? He has had matches. He's done
He's done a handful of indie matches, but this is obviously the most prominent one.
Yeah, and the one that I imagine most people will be watching first after his WWE run. So, what a way to come back if you're Buddy Murphy. And I think a chance for him to tell the world exactly what the WWE was missing out on. So I love stories like this, and talking about freshness. I mean, this is probably one of the fresher Okada matches of the entire year. So for Okada too, a chance to see him with a different person, not on the New Japan roster. I hope they have a great match. Definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most. And then in the main event, we've got for the never openweight championship, it's Jay White defending against Tomohiro Ishii.
Yes, if Ishii loses, he can never challenge for the never championship again. Ren Narita against Will Ospreay is on that card. Josh Alexander against Yuya Uemura. I think that's going to be a great show on Saturday.
Moose versus Juice Robinson. Yeah, it looks like a great card. I mean, the strong roster, I think it has been tremendous, and I really can't wait to see them mix it up with the Japanese crew if that ever happens. But I mean, this is a show with freshness attached to the New Japan brand that many of the American shows, the Japanese-based shows don't have. I also don't rule out an appearance by Kenta, the new U.S. heavyweight champion, who has mentioned the name of CM Punk in his post-match interview.
Well, I think it's only going to be natural that people are going to look at we have Rocky Romero on Dynamite this Wednesday, of any of this Japanese talent coming over, if there's going to be any integration with AEW. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, the door is open. People are working and passing through freely. And so, we got Zack Sabre Jr. trying to line up a match with Bryan Danielson that I think will definitely be on the horizon. And maybe Kenta CM Punk will be the one after that.
Tetsuya Naito is going to be back for the World Tag League beginning this Sunday. He'll be teaming with Sonata in the tournament. And he explained that his injury that he sustained September 18th in Osaka, he said he injured his knee. He says, I've torn ligaments in my knee twice before, and I know that with severe ligament damage, you tend to need surgery that can put you on the shelf for a year. That's what I was preparing myself mentally for as I went to the hospital. But thankfully, there was no ligament damage and no need for surgery. It was a painful injury, and I needed time to heal. But on November 14th, in Korakuen Hall, on the first night of the World Tag League, I will be back. My partner, of course, Sonata. I messaged Sonata yesterday, and all I got in response was a thumbs up emoji. That's pretty on brand, right? And then he goes on to say, there's one thing I want to say to everyone, and one thing I want to make sure we're all clear on. I am not rushing back to the ring. Please be assured on that front. Now that guys who have a match at Wrestle Kingdom are all lined up, they won't be in the World Tag League, right? Even if they want to. New Japan won't let them. I don't get it. I never will. But me and Sonata will be more than adequate substitutes. So really calling out, this is the tour where the big stars don't tend to join the tag league. What sense does that make, is what Naito is asking.
I love how, New Japan wrestlers, in story even, in kayfabe, aren't afraid to question the strange booking. You have Shingo Takagi straight up asking, well, what the hell is this deal with, Okada having another belt? It makes sense storyline-wise, and it just, adds a bit of realism attached to it. Can you imagine if, the WWE roster started to say the same things about Survivor Series or whatever, interbrand, such and such?
We just did this draft, and now we've got half our guys representing the brand that they just got moved to.
Mm-hmm.
What sense is that? And that is our final story, because on Saturday, WWE revealed the sets of teams for Raw and SmackDown for both the men's and women's elimination matches. So on the men's side, Team Raw will consist of Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Rey Mysterio, and Dominic, taking on SmackDown's Drew McIntyre, Jeff Hardy, King Woods, Sami Zayn, and Happy Corbin. The women's elimination match, Raw, will feature Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Queen Zelina, Carmella, and Rhea Ripley, while SmackDown will feature Sasha Banks, Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Natalya, and Aaliyah.
Yeah, I would say maybe one of the bigger surprises being named was Aaliyah, somebody who we haven't seen wrestle even one match yet. We've barely seen her interact with anybody or speak on the show, and yet getting a spot on this roster. And I'm not even, that angry. It's the WWE Survivor Series. It's a random collection in most cases. But for me, it's significant because it tells you she is somebody that they're definitely looking to push, because they could have put a whole lot of other people in there, but they chose to give her airtime on SmackDown this week, and it looks like they're giving her a very prominent role here on this team.
And they are not giving any of that to Toni Storm, obviously.
Tells you who they are pushing and who they aren't. Yeah, so Aaliyah getting that spot, and we'll see what she's got to offer. On the other side of things, it's I think what you would expect, honestly. It's the fact that pretty much everybody used to wrestle on the same show, on the other show, 2 weeks ago, is just further indication of how poorly timed I think a Survivor Series concept is like this right after the draft. For some reason they have to do this at Survivor Series. I don't know why you can't either position this pay-per-view like right after SummerSlam perhaps, or even do your draft after Survivor Series. So you're going to get some of these complaints. I guess I've just been watching this so long that I don't even question it anymore. It is what it is.
Raw will be back tonight from Louisville, Kentucky at the KFC Yum Center.
My favorite.
Yeah, one of the best. They've actually announced a Raw, not house show, like TV taping of Raw for Edmonton, Alberta, a rare Canadian TV date for January 24th, which is the go-home show before the Royal Rumble. So interesting. It's been a long time since Edmonton has had a Raw or a SmackDown.
Very interesting. Yeah.
We're not making the road trip for that one.
No, I don't think so. But hopefully some listeners will, and we'd love to know. But yeah, I mean, I don't often really know what kind of goes into their decision making. I mean, could it just be a good deal that they got for this particular venue?
It does coincide with a Canadian loop that they're doing. They're doing shows in Saskatchewan that weekend, Brock Lesnar country.
TV is, it involves a whole lot more than, just dragging a live event around. So
this would be their first TV outside of the US since the pandemic.
Okay, interesting. When is that?
January 24th.
It's going to be chilly.
It will be cold in Edmonton on January 24th. That is a safe prediction. Another great prediction is that we will have a fantastic Rewind to Raw coming up late tonight. We're live at 11:15 Eastern for Double Ice Cap and Espresso members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. A huge week of shows coming your way. We'll chat more about those tonight. But in the meantime, you can catch up. UFC 268 post show with myself and Phil Chair Talk is up from Saturday night, including one of the best fights you're going to see. Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje opening up the pay-per-view in spectacular fashion. Wait, have you tracked down this fight yet?
I have watched it. I think I have a headache still from, man, this was a wild, yeah, absolutely, John, your recommendation and everybody's recommendation. This would be one to check out.
And as well, the debut of WrestleNomics on the Post Wrestling Network. The first show with Brandon and Chris is up on the site, where they go through all of the news and notes coming out of the WWE's third quarter earnings report and subsequent call with investors and analysts after the fact. So go check that out at postwrestling.com. And we're back tonight, 11:15 Eastern, live.